Right, afternoon everybody. So hopefully you're all refreshed after coffee. Fantastic chat before from Michael as well. So my name's Will Stuart Jones. So a few announcements. So A, I'm not a professor. B, I'm not a doctor. I think I've got a BSc from a fairly average university at some point in my past, but we won't go into that. So what I am is I'm head of consultancy at 3 Radical. So we're basically an organisation, I'll talk about us in a bit. We've built basically a gamification platform, a SaaS software that we can use to address lots of different business problems. But obviously today I'm going to talk mainly about the learnings that we've had using the technology in a marketing context over the last 3 or so years. So just to say, obviously this is powering the experience that we've built for you over the last couple of days. So everything that was talked about before about how you need that lovely loop of an end user interface, the ability to capture the data, the rules engine that you can see here, and obviously feeding that back through, we've all got that, so feel free to reach out to us at any stage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you, to start with, on a bit of a journey back through time. Okay, so make it a bit interactive. So firstly, let's have hands in the air if you're over 40 in the room. Okay, cool. Okay, so next one then, who remembers this? Yeah. Yeah, remember that? Oh no, this is really weird. There's people at the front. What's that? So if you don't know, this is one of the original home computers. So Hungry Horace, some people might remember that. So or perhaps something a bit more exciting. So Electronic Arts. It's not just FIFA football. A long time ago it was actually Skate or Die. Okay, so again, show of hands, anyone played it? We kind of original. Well, yay! Look at that, somebody's played it. So the really cool thing is, one of the guys that's name checked there, one of the developers was a chap called Mike Talbot. Okay, so this is a long time ago, gosh, 80s. And what Mike did after that, he sort of built games when he was a sort of precocious teenager. He disappeared off, met up with a chap called David Aldridge, and built a platform called Auterion. So again, if you come from a marketing space, you may have heard about this platform. So this was really quite a neat piece of kit, but it was all about using data to drive better marketing. Okay, and they were very successful at that. They had a whole bundle of clients in lots of different countries around the world. And fundamentally, what that was it was about using data to drive consumer engagement. So, classically in the old days when everything was a direct mail shot through your front door, you might get 2% response rate, but if you could use data, you might boost that to sort of 8-9% and then sort of apply that to other channels as things move forward in time, to email, that sort of stuff. And that's quite cool. Obviously, if each of those people is spending £500 with you, the fact that you've moved from 2 to 8% is not a bad thing. So that was kind of the heritage that they came from. But they sort of sold that company, and they kind of took a step back and said, well, we've been doing this for 15 years. We've gone from 2% to 8%, so that leaves at least 90% of people that we're still not engaging with as marketeers. So, okay, so have we really succeeded or actually failed? So what are we going to do next? What's the next thing? So they kind of went off and had a think. So they had a look at how the fact that consumer engagement is changing. And I don't need to tell you this. In the old days, brands could shout at you about what you're supposed to do, buy our product, do this, do that. And there was no ability to go off and validate that separately as there is now with social media and peer-to-peer and all that sort of fun stuff. So what they kind of realized is that they had to tap into a number of sort of threads and come up with a new platform, a new way to engage with consumers, and one of the central pillars to that platform is gamification. Okay, so we use that alongside a number of other techniques, also still using our data-driven heritage. So the guys went to Singapore, nice part of the world, tested a whole series of different mechanics they sort of read about, so all the different things that you would have heard about, so different reward systems, different calls to action, but all around marketing. So how do we drive people to become aware of our product? How do we get people to engage with that product physically or online? How do we get people to advocate about that product, sharing it to other people, referring people in, and then ultimately purchasing? So obviously that closed loop cycle of awareness through to purchase and then advocacy afterwards and repeat purchase. So they went off and did that. And so 3 Radical was born. And, this is a very, very early slide, very textbook. We went off and looked at what gamification was on Wikipedia, and we came up with this slide. This was our mission statement to start with. And obviously, I've only got a very brief session, but what I'm going to do is then say over the next 3 years, what were some things that we've done and what we've kind of learned in a marketing context. So since then, we've applied our technology, and we've worked with a lot of leading brands, people like EOn, Zizzi, the casual dining chain, also Matalan. And fundamentally, we've been about driving, I guess, maybe not always long-term engagement, but still using gamification to hit some key goals for these different customers, be it having more customers to market to, making our messages cut through the noise so that you're just not another email in a sea of other offers. So I don't know, classic one, Black Friday, how many emails did you get where it was all about Black Friday, and there was nothing that stood out from the crowd. So that was what we were about as a challenge, effectively. And in terms of what we found is the sort of common themes that we've had when we've worked with clients is that what we've realized is that gamification is enabling us to allow brands to create a value exchange for each interaction, be it a symbolic reward or a real-world reward. It's also about allowing us to build, I guess, more of an emotional engagement with a brand. So that's a whole topic in its own right. But, the idea that people, affiliate themselves with certain brands because the brand says something about them as a person. So do you like is it a Casio watch or is it a Rolex watch? It has some certain connotations. The other thing that we found is that it's about maybe not being super dogmatic. So absolutely, we use gamification, but we also mix that absolutely with real-world rewards as well to drive engagement and revenue ultimately. And as we've done this, obviously the wonderful Octalysis framework, there's two things that definitely stand out from a marketing perspective. And I'm going to sort of summarise those as being choice and chance and talk a bit about that. So this is a very early campaign. So this was something we did for Zizzi. And basically, rather than just blasting out emails with vouchers, we wanted to gamify that process to make it a bit more fun. So you got the ability to play a scratch card, invariably win a voucher that was for Zizzi. And the other thing that you got was if you played this multiple times, each time you played, you won an entry into a prize draw. Okay, so sort of an overarching prize. And the kind of thing was we thought, well, people would have invested more effort to get to that voucher. Therefore, the response rates, the redemption rates of those vouchers is bound to go up. And then we executed it, and it didn't. And they were low, and that was quite disappointing. And I guess the kind of interesting thing, I'd be interested to see if anyone has understood why that may have failed, but fundamentally, we had forgotten to give consumers choice or autonomy over that prize. So they were playing this game, they were scratching the scratch card, they were winning a voucher. It was pretty good fun, and it was very engaging. And certainly the engagement rates for the emails that we sort of used to communicate this, much, much higher, so 3 times higher than usual open rates and click-through rates. But people weren't using the voucher, which is obviously the direct link to the bottom line. So that set us sort of head-scratching sort of several years ago. So it was kind of interesting that in actual fact, the answer to this particular question was actually staring us in the face. So before you got to play the scratch card, you actually got the ability to decide if you played repeatedly what was the overarching competition that you were shooting for. Okay, so like the Apple Watch example over the last couple of days. And in this case, it was either you could get training for your kids with a professional rugby star, or you could go on a holiday to New York. And lo and behold, looking at the stats, 84% of people wanted to go to New York and 16% of people wanted the rugby training. So we'd actually uncovered what the problem was there. It was about we needed to give choice over those sort of vouchers and those reward types. So being a great company, we've learnt from that mistake. So now the ability to do this in a number of different ways. So at sort of simplistic level, the ability to give people choice over their prize type. So Matalan, this is a sort of scratch card mechanic. You could win a particular amount, so 20% off, rather than just being a voucher. We then give you ownership over what type of category that you're going to use that reward for. So is it 20% off women's wear, 20% off homeware, you name it. So that's a simple way of doing it, pretty easy. More complex way of doing it is something that we've done with Zizzi, is to introduce effectively an intermediate currency. So this time, if you complete positive actions for the brand, view content, share content, you name it, you get intermediate points and the ability to convert those points into prizes, unsurprisingly, in a sort of shop-type capability. But the interesting thing, sort of loyalty 2.0, 3.0, whatever you want to call it, not just the ability to use those points to purchase rewards, but also potentially you can see there the ability to maybe get more game time, that sort of stuff. So, again, that's so first learning, giving people choice in marketing, gamified marketing, massive impact. So again, not only did we get the 3 times the sort of engagement for the initial outbound communications, also 3 times the engagement in terms of redemption of those vouchers. So, okay, so sort of, I guess, answer number 1 there for us in terms of what we do driving engagement going forward. So what about chance, the other side of the equation? So chance, I guess, in marketing is a bit of a double-edged sword. Okay, so obviously, chance is, or uncertainty, or whatever you want to call it, is absolutely what makes people play games. Okay, so think of walking into a casino. So online games is another vertical we work with a lot. You know, it's the fact that you think the next spin of the roulette wheel or the next card you turn over is going to be the one that's going to make you win. Okay, so you absolutely want to tap into that with your marketing, because that's the bit that keeps people coming back, even playing a fairly simplistic mechanic. You wouldn't believe how easy it is to get people to play a scratch chord or a Wheel of Fortune on a daily basis if the overarching thing they're shooting for is big enough for them to want to compete for. But, you know, that element of chance then, as I say, double-edged sword, is that marketing organisations will have limited budgets, and as much as you'd like to, I think it was yesterday somebody said, as much as you'd like to offer a Ferrari to everyone that enters a competition, it's just not going to happen. So you need to have some sort of certainty in life when it comes to the rewarding side of the equation. Okay, so how do you achieve that? So again, how have we approached that? So I guess the interesting thing there is sometimes the mechanics themselves don't lend themselves to certainty. So instant win mechanics, very good. You can set up the set up the weightings. We'll sort of show a bit of that. But some of the other mechanics that are very good at repeat engagement, excuse me. So for example, a Monopoly-style board game is fantastic at getting somebody to come back and play repeatedly. So you can sort of embed this into a brand website, get lots of traffic repeatedly, but you obviously can't load the dice. Okay, so that's one thing that's not really in your control. You can do things like alter the number of spaces or the number of things that people have to collect to unlock certain rewards, but fundamentally there is still chance out there, okay, despite the fact that we managed to roll 6 each time on the random number generator earlier, which is pretty funny. We also have some other mechanics that also have that same behavior as well. So we have a quite a neat sort of pairs matching game where a customer again has to come through repeatedly. They get to uncover 2 cards each day. And if they go off and do other positive things for the brand, so look at our offers, share some content, we'll give you some extra flips. So again, when we set this one up, it's kind of quite interesting. What we didn't allow for is the fact that not only do we not know the likelihood that people are going to match cards, in actual fact, there's a bigger problem than that with this particular mechanic, despite the fact that it's very sticky and gets people to come back, which is, particularly if you give people 2 more flips of the card, the more time they come back and play, so if they play this each day, you know, statistically, each time they uncover more and more cards, they actually start to make more and more matches. In actual fact, the reverse problem is that you start to accelerate through the card, okay? So, so that's kind of, so I guess what we're saying is, double-edged sword, these mechanics are really cool because they're really sticky, they get people coming back, doing things to the brand repeatedly, but at the same time, there's a degree of uncertainty around that. So how do we control that? So in our platform, it's all about being able to control that rewarding element, okay? So it sounds simple, but you know, it's something that can be quite difficult in practice when you're doing this with tens of thousands of people playing consistently. But it's the ability to obviously do things like limit the total prize availability, perhaps then the ability to throttle that in a different basis, so the availability of prizes per hour, per week, per day, for example, or per month. Or ultimately to say things are sold out. So, you know, obviously we've brought with us 20 books or 20 notebooks. We know that when you played the game over the last few days, we're confident that even, you know, A, we'd weighted the game, but B, when we got to 20, that's it. It would be sold out and it wouldn't be available anymore. So that's the first thing in terms of rewarding, making sure you're not over-rewarding. And this example is the platform that shows how we can apply those limits to make sure that those aren't, say, over-rewarded. And I guess there'd also then the instant win mechanics. So again, there's a whole philosophical conversation about what sort of behavior you're trying to drive. Is it getting people to come back repeatedly, do lots of things over time? That sort of narrative piece that's been discussed a lot over the last couple of days. What I would also say is don't ignore or don't overlook the fact that sometimes gamified interactions actually want to be very short and sharp. Okay, so classic one that a lot of organisations struggle with, particularly in casual dining, is that they only know maybe 15-20% of their total audience. Everyone else can't be communicated to digitally. In that scenario, in fact, an instant win mechanic where literally somebody does something, a very quick value exchange, sign up, provide your details, here's a chance to win some sort of reward to use now on a subsequent visit is also very useful, and I guess more importantly, total control over that. So okay, you can apply weightings to make sure that you know what the likelihood of each person winning is. So as excited or disappointed as you might be, we know that 75% of you in the room over the last couple of days will have won the Apple Watch entry, and 25% of you will have won the other rewards. Okay, so I don't know how I'm doing for time, but just in terms of sort of wrapping that up, so sort of summarising that. So choice drives engagement, but more importantly, revenue. Okay, so add that layer of choice into what you do. 3 times the engagement, 3 times the sort of redemption rates is classically what we're seeing. Charts creates intrigue, certainly from a consumer perspective, gets people wanting to come back to play repeatedly. But again, it creates, I say on the flip side, for the people, the brand, sometimes a degree of uncertainty. So mitigate that uncertainty wherever possible. And if you get it right, 3 times the engagement. And that's my speech. Thank you.